Okay, so what I want to do today, I want to look at just for like a few minutes, and not a long time. I want to look at this concept of the islandness that comes up. We see it in Rashi. Let's just look at that, and then I want to go and do another sugya on the next stuff. So we're on Daled Amud Aleph, where the remember if you learn, there are two types of there are two types of bogeres. Remember, there's the bogeres that is a bogeres, and then there's this bogeres that is an islandess. So it says there, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, about 9 lines from the Gemara. So the Gemara asks if you can take it out, if you could learn the whole thing out of Narus, Bagris my buy. So then what do I need Bagris for? If I can learn that she goes out in her Narus, what do I need the Bagris for? So the Gemara says that we needed why? Because my buy gabe ela amar buy lo nitcha ela legab lebager the islandis. What's an islandess? What is this concept of islandess? Where does it exist? What is it from? And what is it all about? The bug, and then once you say that, there's also this concept of a bagger ba'islandess. This woman who is a bogeres in her state of islandessness, for want of a better word. So what is that? And that's important. Hello, Yona. How's it? So what is this islandess? Anybody know? So what I want to do is I want to look at the Shulchan Aruch with you, so we can just get a bit of an understanding of what this islandness is. It's quite a different a different state.
Basically, someone who never reaches any physical simanim of maturity.
Well, yes, but what are those? What are the simanim that she's supposed to show? That's the issue. Well, is that all?
That's all we mentioned when we spoke about her becoming an Aaron Aktana originally.
Right. Okay. So yes, but what about? No, I've lost it. What about? Is that the only thing that really defines the islandness? And if that is the only thing that defines the islandness, then how do you know? So I want to show you. I closed it by mistake, so I know I've got to just find it. Let's do it from here. So what we understand is the islandness. So the Gemara Ksuvos tells us that an isha she'eino re'uya laledes miteva briasa, a woman who's unable to give birth because of her the way she's been created. Nikras kach al shem shehi ka'ayil zachar. What does it mean? She's like an ayil zachar. What's an ayil?
Ram.
A ram. She's like a ram. So I saw that what is quite an interesting state of this islandness person is that there's a machloikas as around whether or not Sarah Imenu was an islandness. Was Sarah Imenu an islandness? Because there is a Gemara that says that she was. The problem is that an islandness doesn't. According to the one opinion, an islandness has absolutely no capacity. She basically doesn't have a womb. Now, if she doesn't have a womb, then she's an islandess, means she can't have children. But Sarah Imenu, it says that when she got old, that her nature changed, and she once again was able to. It says Chadal lios la'orech chanashim, that she stopped menstruating. But then what HaKadosh Baruch Hu did is recreated that part of her, and then she started having. So she wasn't a normal islandess in the normal sense of the word. Also, it says about an islandess that because they have a certain hormonal issue, therefore they don't grow breasts It's like but she had, because we know, because she gave birth, she breastfed like all the different children at the time. So it's a very interesting thing exactly what this islandness is. But one thing is for sure, is that there's a certain point where a woman, and an islandness is a very, very rare thing, and therefore we don't worry about it so much. So practically in halacha, the way it manifests itself is that, let's say in this case of this young girl is sold by her father into this person, to this man. Now, obviously, it says that we know as an Amma Ivriya, that as an Amma Ivriya, she will come out. When will she come out? She'll come out she'll come out in her narus. And then what we say is that we're assuming that she's going to come out, number one. And we're also assuming that he can marry her if they decide that's what's going to happen. But if that's the case, it means there's an assumption that she's not an islandess. And Chazal allow that assumption there's not an islandess because they say that it is so rare. But at what point in time did she get like a cheskas narus, a cheskas islandess? At what point in time is it that it's clear that she is for sure an islandess? So if you look at Rashi at the bottom, it's 1, 2, 3, 4 lines from the bottom. It says islandess. Islandess ein la simane narus. She has none of the simane of a narus. V'ashmu'in and kra she'etzu'e yamei bagrusa k'sheyala esrim shana. So when does she go out? When is her yamei bagrus? Because her yamei bagrus is not the normal yamei bagrus. Yamei bagrus is the age of 20. Okay. So if your Yamei Bagrus is the age of 20, the question really is when is it that she goes in? When does she actually get sold by her father? So it has to be, if you're going to say that, he says that the one of the Mefarshim says that from the Ravid and from others, they say the following, that the islandess you can only say that she may in fact be an islandess from the age of 20. Correct? That's what we said. If that's the case, he says, we're talking about an Amma Ivriya. She was a Na'ara, but she didn't show any Simane Na'ara, so she's still in her father's household. She's sold 6 years before her 20th birthday. Why? Because remember, she's going to come out at the end of the 6 years anyway. Because that's what happens. She's an Amma Ivra for 6 years, a maximum of 6 years, and then she goes out and then she chooses to stay in. So, for example, let's say she's 16 years old. She's still considered to be a katana because she hasn't brought the Shtei Sarot. You see that? It's a very difficult concept. And therefore, the Torah is coming to teach us that she comes, even though so what happens is, there's a point in time, let's say she was sold at 16. So she got 4 years to go until she becomes an islandess. But in terms of the din, she's got 6 years to go until she has to be sold out as an Amma Ivriya. Okay, because she can't stay as an Amma Ivriya. So if that's the case, so what happens with her is that she's only 4 years into her period of slavery, because she was sold in, even though she was 16, she was sold in as a katana, but she goes out for sure at the age of 20 when she showed that she's an islandess and she's got nothing and she's got no simane narus. So that's it's like a big idea, just conceptually, to understand who this islandess is, where she comes in, understand Sarah Imenu, and understand that it's a total exception to everything. And because it's such a big exception, so that's why the Chazal wanted to say that that's why you needed the pasuk to bring these things, to bring these things. There is a question that is brought. What happens when she becomes an islandess? Now think about this one. When she becomes an islandess at the age of 20, okay, what does it show about her status of being a bogeres? At what age should she have become a bogeres?
Just over 12.
Right, exactly, just over 12. But she didn't, because she didn't show any of the Simane Narus. But now that she's an islandess at the age of 20, and he sold her at 16, that's a problem, right? Why? Because at Lemafreya, you can see that the sale was a bad sale. It wasn't a good sale. Because why? Because she was actually a Bogeris. So what happens is, in that situation, that the Raavad wants to say that Ein Mechira Sa Mechira, that in actual fact, the Mechira is not a Mechira. If you would go with that, the Mechira would not be a Mechira, and you have to give the money back. So he loses his Amma and he loses his money. Right? Everybody, the whole thing goes back to like the status quo ante. However, the answer is that, you know what, it's not Lemafreya, it's only the time from the time that she presents the four simanim of being an islandess, and it's in terms of a specific shape of her body, the shape of her womb, certain things that she doesn't present like a normal woman present, then she becomes an islandess. And it's only at that point in time that she's considered to be an islandess if we don't look at Mafreya. Otherwise, the whole Mekach would be problematic and it wouldn't work. Okay, let's go down into that. So I just thought I would just share that with you. The Gemara on the next page on Dalet Amud Beis, at the two dots.
Why doesn't the sale work? Because the only time a sale would work is if she was a katana, because you can't sell her as a Bulgarian. So this is Dafka, which is considered to be a katana the whole time.
Yes, so I was saying if the Mafreya part would just mess everything up. That's what he wants to say. That to think that you could go the Mafreya because at 20 she proves that at 12 she should have been a Bulgarian is not a good enough thing, because the whole sales system of that 16 years old she would have been sold at that time would all be it's so fakir and so messed up that he would even leave it alone, and we just say that she only becomes at the time that she presents his first Simana Islanders. Okay, are you happy with that?
Yeah, fine. But is the Gemara saying that at 20 she will present him on an Arad, or was that the limit by 20? It's either or.
No,
either
by
yes
20. By 20. She could present him at 35.
There's no guarantee that 20
we assume that by 20, if she doesn't present Simane Narus, that she's an islandess. I mean, I've got a friend in Cape Town. It's a he, not a she, so it's a very different story. But he had no beard. He's a Chabadnik. He had no beard whatsoever. Like clean shaven, although he never shaved in his life. And at the age of like 35, he started growing a beard. He had 4 children, so he had simane, everything else, but he just didn't have a beard. So maybe sometimes there's a late activation. Okay, just a question. Okay, says the Gemara. I want to go in here. On Dalet Amud Beis, we've learned where we're going to learn out kesef. Where do we learn out that a woman is acquired through kesef? We learned it out. V'yatza'achinam en kasef. En kesef ladon zeh, aval yesh kesef ladon acher. Right? That's how we started off. That is where our Gemara has taken us so far. Comes the Gemara here. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines from the top. Yeah, and says V'tana my silami hacha. He says, hold on a second. Why? We've got another Tana. That another Tana says, we don't learn the dinim of the kicha, of the acquisition of the woman from kesef, that's done through kesef. Where are we learning from here? My silami acha. We can learn it from here, where the Sanya will learn in a brisa. Ki yikach ish isha uva'ala. If a man takes a woman and he has relations with her, and if she doesn't find favor in his eyes, whatever, because he found something in her that he didn't like very, very much. Then what? Then he gives her a get. Okay? So, a kasav la sefer Christus says he writes to her a get. So if that's the case, says the Gemara, ein kicha, where it says, ki yikach ish isha uvala, ein kicha ela bekesef. Kicha is where do we know that kicha is always kesef? Because we know that the concept of kicha is always a concept of kesef, and since the concept of kicha is always a concept of kicha, when it says ki yikach, it must mean that he takes her with kesef, that he's paid for her. So says the Gemara, that's a great idea. We're okay with that, except for one thing. You're learning out, you're forcing a learning out, or you're learning out this thing from Yikach and from Nati says, but hold on a second, we've got a much easier way to learn it out. And if you remember, we've spoken about this concept of Tarach V'Kasav Lakra, that even certain times where you could learn it out as a Kal V'Chomer, the Torah still writes it out, but it's not an ideal way of doing things. The ideal way of doing things is if you can't learn it out from a Kal V'chomer, let the Torah write it out. And when you can learn it out from a Kal V'chomer, then the Torah doesn't need to write it out. You don't need both. Right? And especially if you can learn it out from a Kal V'chomer, why write it out in the Torah? So it says the Gemara, V'alodinu, it's a Kal V'chomer. Oma ama ivriya she'ena niknes bebia. It's an interesting Kal V'chomer, right? That we start with the ama ivriya. The ama ivriya she'ena niknes bebia. She does not get acquired through a process of bia. It's not a way of doing it. I saw in one of the mafarshim that he explains that why does the ama ivriya not get the kinyan bia? Because if you remember, there's three different types of relationships that we've spoken about. We've spoken about the normal ishut, normal husband-wife. We've spoken about yavama, and we've spoken about amma. So how come the amma in all of those doesn't get a kinyan of bia? I'm throwing that out to you. I'm asking you that question. I want to know if you thought about that question.
What is the second option? The second level?
There's isha, yavama. Okay, and you all know what these things are. I'm not defining them, right? There's isha, yavama, and amma ivriya. So an isha is nicknamed because of shtarabia, right? And we're trying to learn that out and prove it, all that. The yavama is nicknamed by what?
Yeah.
With bia only, and the amma ivriya is nicknamed by kesef. Okay, so why is she not nicknamed by bia? Because the other two are. I'm throwing that out to you.
I don't even see it as a question.
Why?
Because with the case of the woman, a wife and Ivama, there's some, at least an idealistic goal, I suppose, towards having children. Yeah, there's not, the purpose of a servant is not to have children.
Show me that in the Rashi. So Rashi says, "V'alodinhu shetahei niknes bekesef mikal v'chomer v'lamali krav." What I need the pasuk for. Rashi says, "She'en niknes bebia im masra lebia l'shem shivcha ena shivchasoy." Bekach. Rashi says it straight out. Rashi says, if he sends her for l'shem shivcha through bia, there's no shivcha. Bia is not a process. There's no right for a man who's got a shivcha to have bia with her. There's no right whatsoever. That's not his deal, right? His deal is that she's going to work in the kitchen or work in the pool. I don't know, wherever it is they're going to work. That's the deal. If that's the case, how can you possibly say that bia would be a means of acquiring her? But that's what Rashi saying. Masrala lebia l'shem shivcha. Eina shivchasai b'kach. It's not shivchas. There's no shivchas in bia. Okay, so therefore we got it. Okay, good. Shkoyach. Let's go weiter. So he says, in the same way as the ama ivriya she'ena niknes bebia niknes bekesef, she is acquired through kesef, right? Because we know that's what the pasuk says. Zu sheniknes bebia enodin shetikana bekesef. Surely the one who's acquired with bia, it can easily be done with kesef. So you've got three means of acquisition: kesef, shtar, bia. If you can't be done with, if the one who is not, sorry, Amma Ivriya she'ena niknes bebia is niknes bekesef. She's not acquired with bia, but she's acquired with kesef. Then surely it seems to be what they're wanting to say is a lower level of kinyan, which is bia. Then how much more so the level of kesef? It'll happen. Okay, no issue. Niknes bebia. And it is going to be kesef. Yavama tochias. This is the Gemara. Hold on a second. The implication is that bia, if bia acquires, if bia acquires, then kesef should acquire. That's the implication. But Yavama tuchiach, you can't prove it because Yavama comes and knocks it out. She niknes bebia ve'ena niknes bekesef. Yavama doesn't have that nice little symmetry that you want. Mali Yavama shekene niknes b'shtar. Oh, hold on. Yavam is not niknes b'shtar. But Tomer bezush niknes b'shtar. Talmud loyma ki yikach ish. So we got a Yavama. What's the story with the Yavama? The Yavama shekain ein niknes b'shtar. So why don't we say the Yavoma, which we know is not Koine B'Shtar, Toimar Bezush, this one should be able to be Niknes Talmud Lomer Ki Yikach Ish, comes to teach us what? Kesef. You need the Kesef because you've got Yavoma and Yavoma keeps messing things up. V'ha lama likra, ha'asya la. This is what do you need it for? Ha'asya la. You can come and learn what does ha'asya la mean? Most of you guys. Ha'asya means we can learn it out of the Kal V'chomer. You keep bringing me psukim, but I can learn it out of the Kal V'chomer. So Amar Rav Ashi mishum de ikela meimar miikara the dina pircha. He says, you know why? Because you can learn it out of a Kal V'chomer, but within the Kal V'chomer, ikela meimar meikara dina pircha. That it's actually the question sitting in the actual Kal V'chomer itself. What's the question? Mehecha ka ma'isisla. Where do we get it from? We learn from the Av Ivriya. Ma la'ama Ivriya. Shekain yotz abach kesef. And Ama Ivriya goes out with kesef. Under what circumstances does Ama Ivriya go out with kesef? So Rashi tells us that the way she goes out with kesef, shepoide es atzma b'toich sheish shanim. Let's say, I don't know where she gets the money. She's got a lot of money. And she's able to be poide herself. She redeems herself within the 6 years. Im tirtze, if she wants. K'dichsiv, as it says, v'havda, v'hoyel v'kesef chashuv ba'alif doisa, chashuv lamik nik doisa. And so because kesef is able to take her out, so I can put her in. In other words, her relationship is a relationship that could be based on kesef. Tomar bezu she'enu yotza b'kesef. So hold on a second. Maybe we could say, concerning the woman, how does a woman go out? What did the Mishnah tell us? There's two ways.
Get to Mrs. Sabal.
So she can't go out with kesef. So maybe you would want to say what? That she can't go in with kesef either, because so within this whole Kal V'chomer, you have to analyze what the Gemara says. You have to every single step of the way and reanalyze it the other way around as well. We wanted to say that Ama Ivriya, that she can go. That she can't go with. That she goes with kesef, but she can't go with bia. So the one who can go with bia, how much more so must be able to go with kesef? But the Amivriya presents a problem that she can goes out with kesef, but the normal wife can't go out with kesef. There, so maybe kesef doesn't apply. So says the Gemara, Talmud Loimar ki yikach ish v'itzrich lamichtav v'yatz achinam. You need to say v'yatz achinam. You also need to say ki yikach ish. The kasav rachmana ki yikach haviyamina, because if I had only said ki yikach, I would have thought Kiddushin de yahiv la baal dida have. If I had only said ki yikach, I would have thought that the Kiddushin that was given to her belongs to her. So kasav rachmana v'yatz achinam. So the Torah says v'yatz achinam. What do we say v'yatz achinam? Ein kesef la'adon zeh v'yesh kesef la'adon acher. V'ikasav rachmana v'yatz achinam. Now listen carefully to this. If it had only said v'yatz achinam, hava amin, I would have thought what? Heicha de yahava iu lididei v'kidashtoi have kiddushi. Heicha de yahava. Maybe when she gives to him, right? Ihi lididei, she to him. V'kidashtoi have kiddushi. You would have thought that the kiddushin is kiddushin. If you didn't have this concept of v'yatz achinam, right? So therefore, kasav rachmana ki yikach ish. The Torah says ki yikach ish and not ki tikach, meaning that where he says he takes and not he is taken. So on that, I wanted to share with you something that is just kind of like on my mind. And how would when we say ki yikach ish isha uvala, what does it mean? It means he's giving her something. Now, if you look at the Shulchan Aruch on that, and I just want to, I'll just share my screen onto it. Let me just find it. Hold on. Give me a second. Okay. So can you see there, guys? Okay, now it's a little bit premature in the Gemara. The Gemara is going to discuss a little bit further, but I just thought it would be nice just to look at something important. So Shulchan Aruch says as follows. So what's the language of Kiddushin? How do we do the Kiddushin? That's what the Shulchan Aruch wants to know. There's in Even HaErez Chav Zayin. So it says, but Kesef Keitzad. How do you do the Kesef part? Noisen la bifnei shnayim, pruta or shave pruta. He's got to give her in front of two Eidim. This is all your weddings. And those, please God, will be having weddings soon. Oh, by the way, Yona, I know we said we try to finish it in 6 weeks for your engagement party, but I'm not sure it's going to happen. Okay, if you don't mind.
Easier.
So, Keitza, no son la bifnei shnayim pruta or shave pruta. You give a pruta or shave pruta. V'omer la, listen carefully. Harei at mekudeshet li bazeh. Shulchan Aruch says you have to say Harei at mekudeshet li bazeh. You are mekudeshet to me with this. Says the Ramah, v'yesh omer. Sheish loymar la kadas Moshe v'Yisrael, and that's what we do. V'chein noagim lechatchila. Okay, v'chein noagim lekadesh b'tabas. You should also the minhag is to be mekadesh with a ring. V'yesh lahem tam b'tikunei hazohar. And says the Ramah, where do you get this ring story from? The ring story is all about from somewhere from the Zohar. There's a whole discussion in the Zohar. I'm trying to find it. I couldn't find exactly what it is. There's a lot of indication of what it is, what Tabat stands for, all these things. So if that's the case, it's clear that the concept of Kiddushin is no sen la bifnei shnayim. He has to give to her. What would happen under a chuppah if she gave him? I don't know how many, Aaron, Leo, do you guys wear I can see your wedding ring, Aaron. You both wear wedding rings. So where'd you get it from? When did she give it to you?
Only after the whole story.
Why didn't she give it before?
Ron kept mine for me.
Say again?
Ron kept mine for me and gave it to me just before the dancing.
Okay, but why didn't she give it to you under the chuppah?
Because we didn't want anyone to think that we thought that it's part of Kiddushin, because it's definitely not.
Okay, so listen to this. So the Igros Moshe says that
Wait, am I in the camera?
one of the means of invalidating a reform or conservative wedding, okay, is possibly if she gives him a ring under the chuppah. However, he says the fact that she's giving the ring really demonstrates that he's giving. Really demonstrates that it could just be that it's what's going on. However, he says what he's saying is that on the one hand it might be allowed, but then he says when she gives him the ring as well, it means that his giving her the ring is the same as her giving him the ring. It means that it's got no real validity. It's just a gift, and not in order to make the acquisition of the Kiddushin. However, nonetheless, he says that listen to this: if a Orthodox rabbi is coerced into permitting the ceremony, the wedding is valid. So you've got two statuses. You've got the status of Reform conservative, that we allow that as a heter, because it's not a kinyan. But if it's under a Torah guide, let's call it, within the realm of halakha, and there is some type of coercion where the rabbi is pushed to allow that ring ceremony, at least you understand that first part of the ceremony is him putting the ring on her finger. That's the Kiddushin. Once that Kiddushin's happened, then anything else can happen. We're trying to avoid it. So he said firstly, and it's fascinating, and I'm not saying anything to you guys. I'm just telling you what he says, because the other study into this as well. So Rav Moshe Feinstein says the first issue with a man's ring is chukas hagoyim. So that's a big part. The other one is we're concerned that obviously that people will think that it's halachic Kiddushin is only a one-sided affair. That's what we're talking about. That he's and that's what the Gemara is so worried about. That the Yahava lei ledidei v'kidashtoi have Kiddushin. So the Torah is worried it has to be kiyikach. He has to do the kicha himself. So listen, I'm going to just read this to you that I got from a shut. He writes here that according to Rav Moshe Feinstein, when the Masada Kiddushin feels there's no other choice, the Kala may give the chassan a ring, and the rabbi explains the official ceremony is completed. Similarly, Rav Yaakov Ariel advised the Tzohar rabbis, this is fascinating, who perform weddings primarily for non-religious Jews, that they may permit the color to present the chosin with the ring before breaking the glass at the end of the ceremony. Indeed, this is the practice of many Chiloni weddings. However, the preferred practice is not to incorporate an additional gift of ring or ring into the Kiddushin because it might be problematic. But we find often in some of the more liberal, even liberal Orthodox, we find very often that that this double ring ceremony has become quite a big thing, and it's not. It has its problems. Okay, I want to look at this Tosfos. The Tosfos says, "Mal ama ivriya sheken yotzah b'kesef." Remember, the Gemara said that that we can learn out the kal v'chomers. So look at this thing. Mal ama ivriya sheken yotzah b'kesef. In the same way as the ama ivriya goes out with kesef, right? Therefore, it must be also what? But she goes out with kesef, so she can come in with kesef. But that going out with kesef uproots the concept of the normal marriage, because the normal marriage doesn't go out with kesef. Ve'im toimar, Tosfos says, let's ask the question. Maybe you can say, Neilif kesef mi bia. Let's learn out the kesef from bia. Why? Uma bia she'ein koine ba'ama ivriya. Bia is not koine an ama ivriya, but it is koine be'isha. Bia is not koine ama ivriya, but it is koine an isha. Kesef she'koine ba'ama ivriya einodin she'yikne be'isha. So it's using the kal v'chomer from above, the power of bia versus kesef. You understand that? As the Gemara, what Tosfos is saying is, why doesn't the Gemara throw out this attempt at the kal v'chomer? Because you've told me that because the kesef gets out the ama ivriya, therefore she can be married with kesef. But a normal married woman can't go out with kesef there. So how do we know that she can be married with kesef? So just learn it out from bia, and the Gemara doesn't mention this because bia is the thing that. Because bia is she'ein koine ba'ama ivriya, but it's koine be'isha. So then kesef surely could be a koine as well. So Tosfos answers says v'yesh toimar kol she'kain de'ikela mifrach. You could have even asked Yavama Tochiach. You can always ask these questions, but Yavama Tochiach she'niknes b'bia v'eina niknes b'kesef. You could have said that, but if you had said that, then you would have had the same thing that we had earlier on, where Yavama comes in and Yavama throws out the attempt to make a very clear kal v'chomer. Because why? Because Yavama is always the odd one out. Yavama is niknes b'bia, but he's not niknes b'kesef. And so what we see here is that we've got three very, very important spaces that we just have to keep bearing in mind. Number one, you got ama ivriya. Ama ivriya, how does she go in? B'kesef. How does she go out? B'kesef. Remember that. And so we can start playing with those two. She goes out with kesef, therefore she goes in with kesef. She goes in with kesef. So therefore, if she's going to get married, then we can use that kesef as a powerful thing for the kal v'chomer. The next level is the yavama. The yavama is a woman who what? How does she go in? She goes in with bia. Okay? Very important. How does she come out? How does yavama come out? Yavama and isha are exactly the same. It's get or b'mita sabah. So there's no difference in them. So
What about chalitza?
no, that's prior to her going into the yibum state. That avoids the state of yibum. Okay, that gets her out of everything. It's not a way of getting out of a husband. It's a way of getting out before it even begins the relationship. Okay, and then you have the isha. The isha is she's got all of them. She's got ketef, shtar, and bia. And so what the Gemara is doing in these cases is playing the one against each other. But at the end of the day, what Tosfos is pointing out here, the way I understand it, is that Yavama always throws a spanner in the works, because Yavama goes in with bia, but there's no kesef. So whereas we wanted to say that bia, the next step is always kesef. We can't do that because Yavama keeps putting a spanner in the works, and because of that, we come out and we see that you need both the psukim prove it, both the psukim help us to understand it a little bit better. Let's stop there, guys, and Bezrat Hashem, I'm going to leave this next sugya. It's very similar in the way that that it's playing with psukim, and I want to go into a little bit more into shtarot and things like that to really start understanding the inyanim of kinyan that we're going to come into on a deep level. Okay.
Thanks, Rob.
Sure.
Okay, guys. Okay. Have a good one,
Thanks,
guys.
everyone.
Who's missing?